Welcome to the fourth episode of The Nest. It has been a pleasure being with you thus far, and we hope that you have enjoyed it as well, or at least have taken something of value out of it. Today is actually our last episode within the series, and we are a bit sad on one part, but happy that we're concluding one part of the whole Nest. In fact, the first series that we have done has been about personal goals, been introductions, it's been what are we looking to be about, and it's just been focusing on what we normally start the year with, which is personal goals. So I'm quite happy that even as the month of January is coming to an end, we're also wrapping up, call it the planning phase, and we're about to launch with that interest, with that keenness into what 2021 will be. So thank you to those that have subscribed to this point, and also thank you to those who continue to share it in their own personal platforms, continue to speak to their friends about it, and also recommend certain things for us, some suggestions. We still continue to appreciate that. And in closing it out, perhaps it's just worth recapping what we've been speaking about in the last two episodes. The first of the three episodes that we've done on personal goals series was focusing on how to create effective systems and how to develop the character of the individual. It was basically speaking to the whole idea that goals, or rather personal goals, do not achieve themselves. You need to put some work in place. We spoke about how you need to name or identify your goals based on the work that you need to do. That is, naming or putting them out in a way that sensitizes you to the work that you need to do. And then in last week's episode, we spoke about the SMART goals, call it method or objectives or way of writing out goals. And we did speak about the fact that it was designed for corporates, but it can be adapted to different platforms, one of which is personal goals. And we highlighted what the acronym is about in terms of being specific, in terms of putting goals that are measurable, ensuring that they are relevant to the purpose that you've got, and time bound and all those kind of things. So today we are wrapping it up in the sense that what we've been looking at is been planning, or rather from the state of before you start, let's put it that way. But we all know that life is not that kind of an event that unfolds as it has been planned. Surprises come. I won't mention, there's a whole lot of surprises that can happen. People move places, people move jobs, people start businesses. Some people in their lives that are very important may suffer some adverse type of events. So there's a whole lot of things that happen, but the whole point that I'm bringing these things up on is on the part that the impact that it has on you now and your motivation for your personal goals. And too often you find that you get demotivated when these things happen. You lose the energy, or even your own interest in pursuing these goals kind of passes away as January passes on. So today we are looking at, now you have been pursuing your personal goals, you're at a point where perhaps the motivation is not as strong, or either the results that you're intending are not coming out as strongly or as much as you expect. Basically, your expectations in a way are not being met in what you had set out to do. So we are looking at how do you now begin to build up that motivation again. What need you do? And as we did say in the introduction, we've got about 4 tips that we're just going to go through, and the idea there is basically speaking to how to build up that motivation that has waned. Still have our book, and the first one that we want to touch on, in fact it's not even the first point, it's just around the things that steal motivation. Too often it's an element of confusion or not knowing what to expect, or rather having misaligned expectations that can be demotivational. When you need to wake up in the morning and what you need to wake up to do is something that you are not certain of, or something that you do not trust yourself to do, or even something that you have tried to do but it's just not working, those kind of circumstances can eat at motivation. because you want to see the results now, and you don't want to be having moments where you are still thinking through the idea of what you need to do. So those kind of things are the things that take away that motivation. And today we are looking at the question of, should I do it? Because normally that's where you get to see whether the motivation is there or not. It's not the can I do it. That's speaking to the ability. And the fact that you've set up those goals, and if you followed some of the things that we've spoken about that can apply to you, you'll understand that it's not a question of ability. It's a question of will to stick to it. So that question comes in the form of, should I do it? And the whole idea around should is about an obligation that you've set for yourself in terms of what you need to do. But it can happen, of course, like we've said, that desire and that feeling of wanting to do it is not as strong. So how do you go about basically rebuilding it or refocusing in the middle of the year? It can be in March, it can be in June, or it can be even in September. The one part that we wanted to start with is along the lines of, you need to train yourself to go against the feeling, even in your small daily decisions. For instance, there are certain patterns that people follow when they wake up. Other people will open their eyes up and they stay in bed for like 30 to an hour, trying to get to that point where they are motivated to get out of bed. Other people just spring out. Other people have got other things that they follow through with that other people do not do. But it's basically training yourself, even with the small things. Setting yourself a certain timetable, not written down in that sense, but a program in your head to know that I need to do this. And it starts with the small things. Like, when do you bath, for instance? I know when you have to go to work, it's kind of enforced, well, for most people. It's kind of part of the program, but if you develop a certain program that you follow, even around those things, it's a certain training to your mind or to your thinking or to your being about who is in charge in a way, or who is sending out the instructions. So if you give your body, if you train yourself in that way, that even the small things, it will be much easier when you get to bigger things in terms of now getting out of bed and going to run. That's a different level. But if you've managed to do it with the smaller things, we'll get back to this in terms of unpacking it, of course. And there's a book by Shonda Rhimes called The Year of Yes. It's basically where she is speaking about the whole idea of her going against what would be the natural decision that she would make. For instance, she speaks about going to work events or even being asked out, where she would normally be saying no. No, because yes, her program was full, but she's got this year where she just decided that this is the time where I accept every and anything, whether I'm comfortable or not. So it's that type of an application within the small decisions or small things, daily tasks that you need to do, where you are going because you know the task needs to be done, not because you feel like doing it. And that's how you're going to train yourself, or train your will in a way, or redirect your will, or refocus your will. There's many ways to put it. So the first one is go against your will in the daily small tasks or decisions that you need to do. Then the second one is along the lines of 10 decisions into processes. I'm going to make an example with this one, and then we'll get into a bit of detail about it. The first part around, or the example that I would like to make, is one that concerns, at our church we've got services that run on Wednesdays, and for the longest part when I first joined our church, I never used to go on Wednesdays. Even when I started attending Wednesdays, there was always a question that I would ask myself almost every Wednesday. It was a question of, are you going to church? And this went on for a very long time. And normally when you must ask yourself that, when it comes to church anyway, that are you going to church? There's that thing that is pulling you to say, today I don't feel like it. I mean, I was there this past Sunday, that kind of thing. And it used to trouble me in the sense that I felt like I was giving in to the influence of the enemy on one part, in terms of not doing what you should be doing as a Christian, or rather not having the joy to do what should come naturally or should be easier to do for someone who calls themselves a Christian. Up until one day where I was like, I cannot be making the same decision every Wednesday of my life. So I just decided there and there that the main decision that I would make about going to church was what I was going to wear. So by default, I locked myself into the idea of I am going to church, it's Wednesday. From that time, it just became easier to even plan for church, because the main decision now was not along the lines of are you going, it was, okay, what are you going to wear? Those kind of things, like smaller stuff. So I had formed the Wednesday pattern into, or as I had turned that decision into a process of it's a Wednesday, you're going to church. There's no thinking of are you or you not going to go. So that's what I mean by turning a decision into a process. So it's trying to refocus your attention and the use of your time, where you do not have to go through the same decision, or have to make the same decision every day about the same thing. Where of course sometimes it will be a yes, sometimes it will be a no. So I locked myself into a decision of you are going to church. There's many other parts now that you can apply that type of a thinking in concerning your personal goals, where you take away that choice to do it and you are doing it out of your own free will. So you are still choosing, but you are taking away that instance of having to decide every time, am I going to go running? Am I going to save money? Am I going to build this relationship with my parents or my siblings or my colleagues or any other thing that you may have as a personal goal? Am I going to? So you are taking away that decision. You know that you're going to, so you focus on that. That's the third one. So we've spoken about the first one, which says go against your will in the small stuff. Train it there. The second part is turn decisions into processes. In that sense, like you're fixing your focus on that. Then the third one is separate the thinking from the doing. So what this is basically speaking to the idea of planning. Like we said, what takes away motivation sometimes is that confusion, or rather not knowing what to do or trying to figure it out while you are doing it. Sometimes that can be demotivational to some people. And I got this from a guy that I worked with. He was a manager at the time. His name is Habibur Rahman Ibrahim. And we were making this plan one time about, it was a presentation to be sent to some executives that they were going to use in their own type of meeting. So as we were going about it, in terms of sourcing the data that we wanted to use and also how we're going to present it, he said to me, Bonga, you need to separate the thinking part of it. That is, you cannot be doing it and thinking about how you're going to do it at the same time. So you need to plan ahead. So get the data. And at the other time, when you've got the data that you know you need, then think then how you're going to structure it. So that was kind of something that got stuck in my head, that I use it in other parts as well of my life. But when it comes to personal goals, it's about planning out. If you know that your goal, for instance, is building a stronger relationship with your parents, then you need to set out how you're going to do that. It must not be something that you pull off your cuff every time that you need to do. So you must know, for instance, if you're calling them, say, every Wednesday, or every time you go on WhatsApp, you're popping a message to your siblings. Those kind of things, those are the things that can take away that motivation when it wanes, or rather even lessen the speed at which it wanes, because you already know that that's how you're going to go about doing it. So you separate your doing it from the planning of how you're going to do it. So you're taking away the friction within that moment where your focus is split between the doing and the thinking of how you're doing the strategizing. I've always struggled with this word, but you are separating those two processes. So that's the third one. And the fourth one that we want to focus on today is, when we were growing up, well, we don't do it as much now. Even I don't know whether kids in this day and age still do that, because there's smartphones and stuff. People used to put up posters. It'd be like a poster of a soccer star for guys, a soccer star, or a team that you follow, or even the cartoons that you liked. I'm not exactly sure what ladies put up, but I'm sure their own stuff that they would put up. But the whole idea around that was, it was something you saw every day. every time you got into the space that you were in, whether it was your room or you shared it with your siblings or even other people. But the idea was that there was a constant reminder, and that played something into, say, for instance, if it was about sport, that built your motivation around doing sports, such that every time you went out, you were always looking forward to playing because it was something that you enjoyed doing. So now, how do we do it in this day and age? Chances are that no one is going to be going out to buy some posters or even printing them out. But we've got smartphones, we've got PCs that we work with. Even kids at high school have got tablets, not high school, man, at primary or even before then, they need to have these tablets that they need to use. So what are you doing now? You're filling the devices that you normally use on a daily basis with stuff that is consistent with your personal goals. Because the more you see it, the easier it is for your mind to accept that it needs to be done, or it's something that you have set as something to achieve for this year. So what you are doing there, you are fixing a certain image about it. It's an external, constant reminder. It can be stressful, of course, when you don't do it or you don't follow it, because it's like there is a reminder. But for the most part, it will be a reminder for you to go do it. And sometimes it will even be happening not as active as you seeing it and being motivated, but because you are seeing it over and over again, it is something that is easier for you to fall into. Other people build up what we call daily affirmations. So within your daily affirmations, you can involve the goals that you have set, where you are basically speaking about, say, if I've made an example about building relationships, I am continuously building my relationship with this. So that already sensitizes you every time you go through your affirmations or the things that you need to say. It's getting logged in your mind as something that you need to do. So that is one thing that can assist with that. That's a fourth thing that can assist with building that motivation, or rather keeping it there even before it wanes. That's another. We've spoken about the idea of confusion and uncertainty eating motivation for lunch. So take away the confusion. If you need to study about that particular goal, by study I mean do some reading. I'm not talking about a formal course. I'm talking about doing some reading or even following certain individuals who are experts in that particular field that you have set as a goal to achieve for this year. Those things will assist with taking away some of the assumptions that you may have made in your mind that do not necessarily align entirely with how you've set, or rather how you want to do or follow your goal. So those things are there to assist in terms of keeping that motivation burning. There's a much more, I suppose if you are not Christian now, this one may not be as applicable about you. Sometimes you just need to speak the word of God into your personal goals. Because it's not enough sometimes to say the affirmations. There needs to be a power that draws those personal goals into being fulfilled. And we as Christians, we know the Word of God as being the place for that. So we can speak the Word of God into our affirmations. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. I can build all these relationships that I want to build. I can save the money that I need to save. I can study and pass the courses that I need to pass. I can save money to buy the car that I want to buy the property that I want to buy, to take my kids to the school that I want to take them, through Christ who gives me strength. So there's a whole lot of other scriptures. All things work out for the good of those who love God. All the personal goals that I've set, and you mention them by name, will work out for the good of you because you love God. Of course, you must then act in a way that loves God, of course, not just say the word. Remember, we also spoke about faith not being magic. It's basically a belief that is backed by action, we did say. So that is, in a way, a faith action as well. But now it concerns personal goals. So that is what we wanted to speak about. In a nutshell, over the last 3 episodes, what we have been saying is that it's not enough to just wish certain things to happen. You need to take the action to do them. And that's pretty much all that we were trying to say when it comes to personal goals. That you need to put in the work. If you do not put in the work, nothing will happen. So thank you very much for tuning in today as well. We're going to be going on a little break just to refocus, call it, in terms of how we've done for these 4 episodes, just looking at things that we can improve going forward, and then we will come back again. We will announce when we are coming back. But the idea is that this was an introduction of what the Nest is about, and there'll be more of this as well, and also other things, of course, that we are looking to bring to you, like we did say in that first episode. So thank you very much for coming through, and thank you for sharing the stuff like we mentioned. And we hope and we pray that the personal goals that you've set for this year will be things that come December we'll be celebrating about, will be things that over and above the content that we've put here. The whole idea is not the content, the idea is people living their fulfilled lives. So if the lives that you will be living come December are in line with the goals that you've set, we will be happy. So thank you very much for coming through. And at any time that you're watching these episodes during the year, just know that you can start at any time. It's never too late to change your life. It's never too late to take steps to ensure that your life is made better. So we hope and we pray that 2021 is your year too, just like it is your families, it is your workplaces, that there's good things that are happening. But over and above that, even when the negative things happen, don't lose that motivation forever. Cry if you must, but don't cry for too long, because the enemy likes it when we cry non-stop. The enemy likes it when we are downcast, but we are people of the Word of God. We are people who are called to live their lives in a particular way. So get yourself back up again and go fetch that motivation from the enemy if he has taken it away, so that your personal goals are not derailed. Remember, you are setting these personal goals in the presence of God, a God who knows what is still to happen this year, even though you do not. So your reliance is not necessarily only on your self-will alone, as much as that's what we've been speaking about, but it's also on God helping you to navigate through your personal goals, a year that you know nothing about, but he knows everything about. So thank you very much. This is the Personal Goals series from the Nest.